Live.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better... Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
Well, here we are, guys. Welcome back.
$2 a month. Oh, did I overshoot the runway there?
Well,
Not the first time.
no, James. James, behave. I love the fact that how I have this set up, I'm looking over and it's right in your direction. So I feel like I'm, just.
Yeah, kind of.
Coming
Henry's
down on
back! Maybe.
He is,
Wait.
maybe.
Huh?
Now, let's be fair. We've had Henry
What?
all night, but
Yep.
for some reason, as we were jumping onto the show, he's now a spinning circle of death. But
No,
guys,
that's-
it's so great to be back with all you here. It's been there he is. It's been a while. since
it's
we've
a
done
new
it.
season.
It is a new season. I think we all needed a break there for a spring break.
Mm-hmm.
Sasquatch is the reason for the season.
Well,
Yeah. Spring break. Season of the boobies. Yeah.
we know what Vance was doing during that. Anyhow,
I'm gonna get in trouble now. Oh, good. This is good. This is
Just
good.
put that in your Peter file.
As Henry comes back, we'll address it as we go, as we get Henry back here. But guys, for as long as Henry and I have been doing this, so you go back to 2006, 2005, and on Yahoo Messenger, 2006 as an actual podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you feel like you run out of things to talk about,
Yeah. Well.
and you can only talk about the same stuff so many times before even you, as the broadcaster, feel like it's just repetitive and blah. And
No
you
worries.
just need a break. And honestly, I wasn't getting out there enough to talk about anything fresh. Now that the weather is getting nicer, and as James and I had talked about, I don't know about you, but the winter seemed to go on forever.
It did here. Yeah, it did.
And not even so much from us from a precipitation standpoint, but just the seasonal effectiveness disorder of the winter. Just
Yeah, wait till you get to my age. Then the winter just drags on for about 28 years. It's like, when is spring coming? I have no idea. But the flowers have popped up around my property here, and the birds are chirping at 4 a.m, and it seems to be coming about. So.
Slam his head against a window again.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening. Yeah, pretty much.
well, I'm glad we all kind of had the same experience through the winter. It wasn't just me. It was kind of
No. It was a universal. Yeah. And of course, the news of the day doesn't help much either, in the political spectrum. Not that we're a political show, but it just makes things drag out so much longer. It's like, when is this craziness going to come to a screeching halt? and it just does. It makes things seem so much longer, but we're there. We're there. We're in, at least where I'm at, we're into the 70 and upper 70-degree weather, and it's time to grab the walking stick and a firearm and hit the trails again and start looking for some evidence. So that's pretty exciting itself.
James and I don't have to go far. I mean, we go out to the land and work on the land, and we have had plenty of deer this year. And we're not talking little ones, big honking deer that have made themselves at home. And we went last week, white-tailed deer, 7 of them that were in the at the land not this week, the week before. Just a mass of a deer, which was really cool to see. And you know, spending time out there really getting us to know exactly, you know, what's out of place, what's been moved, what's been touched. It's real fascinating to see how we're adapting to the environment because we're spending so much time in it. It's a cool experiment on our own senses and our own attention. And you know, we got game cameras out there, and before folks ask, there is no known Sasquatch activity in this place. We didn't.
There may be some weird Native American ghosts, but that's a little the problem.
That's a different story, but nonetheless, probably as entertaining as if there was Sasquatch.
Yeah, but you know what? It seems to me that if there is some Native American spirit or attributes that have been left behind, it would seem like it would be type of an area also that something as a bipedal creature may exist also. Maybe. In that type of a region. Yeah, I'm only speculating. All of this is speculation, but it's certainly worth looking into. And you know, I hope you guys keep your eyes to the mud and see if you see any unusual toe prints or something a little bit anomalous that may not seem normal. But you know, where there's deer, that's a food source. And you know what? It could very possibly bring in something that's carnivorous or omnivorous that needs a meal, especially this time of year.
Well, you know, I think where Sean was getting at is we talk about field research and we talk about a bunch of it is. And Jenny and Jamie King, you know, always kind of gave me a lot of inspiration because they're out there all the time.
Right.
You know, but the thing is like, so I see where the deer have been one week. I see that they may have been one area or another area or whatever. And then the next week, I see the deer there. Then the third week, I see scat from different areas and go, okay, they've been here, they've been here. They kind of like this bush I've been growing, you bastards, you know. And then as the weeks go on, I tell these conversations to Sean and go, Sean, I come here, let me show you. The deer have been over here, and there. And then he looks at the camera footage, and he uses my speculations with his video evidence, and we can say deer A was here. And I think that is the value of, even if you're not hunting for a specific creature, right? That you learn of these little things. Like they know when I change stuff because I can tell you now, like I moved all these logs around just so that I could have a border area so it was easier to plant a fixed area because the deer are investigating me.
Right.
Hey, why did he move that? What was special about that? Hey, I noticed like my pumpkins. I started to put the hay barrels. I do have if anybody's following this, you can. It's called Lot 56 The Land. It's on Facebook. Go right ahead and look at it. I would appreciate your insight as long as you're positive. If you're not, I'm just going to either ignore you or get rid of you. Pick one of those. But like, as I move things, or me and Sean do a project, like today we put my Sasquatch sign in. I can guarantee you when we go back on Monday, there'll be deer activity over there because they want to know why. Mm-hmm. It smells funny, right? You know, and I have a picture of it if people want to see it. But like, it smells different than the rest of it because I lacquered it. Its eyes are red and shiny. the other animals are going to look and go, hey, why is this here?
Mm-hmm.
And at first it might act as a scarecrow, but what I've learned about deer is if a scarecrow doesn't move consistently, they realize it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
And now you take that same concept and you put that to we're assuming an intelligent bipedal creature. Okay. If we put out a game camera and it's shiny and it doesn't move, they assess it's not important, or they check it out and then get rid of it.
Right.
Okay. So like I said, is even though we're not doing direct research, we are learning a lot about being outside more.
Mm-hmm.
That when we would see something, we'd be going, okay, that's a bear track. Okay, this has got to be deer scat. It makes us better researchers that we know the difference between a deer, a bear, and a possum.
Right. And with that being said, deer are very wary of their environment, so they probably will pick up on subtle changes within their environment. And I look, a deer is not going to think in human consciousness. They don't. You could describe physics to a deer all day long, and they have no concept of what it is you're talking about. But they do pick up visually on changes within their environment. And when I say that, I'm wondering if anybody here has noticed, which I've noticed over the last couple of years, this time of year, I notice a lot more roadkill. More now than through the summer and fall and winter season. I notice a lot more roadkill from raccoons, rabbits, birds, deer on the side of the road. And I understand this is a time of year where they're on the movement and, there's
seeking food sources.
Yeah, seeking food, looking for nesting areas because they're already in gestation period. And I'm wondering if you guys have noticed that at all, or if you haven't really taken note to that, but there seems to be a lot more road activity with wildlife in the area. And I'm wondering if even a Sasquatch is in the same category as that there's going to be more roadside encounters, so to speak.
You went dark, Vance.
Yeah, I know. It's my light
the
is
same concept. Like I said, the same concept of with the deer.
Right.
Me and Sean saw a couple of deer coming. I saw deer going up. He saw deer going back. During hunting seasons and in winter, they buckle together because the herd is warmth and the herd is protection.
Right.
But as those seasons and it warms up, then they look for new food sources. Well,
right.
the new food service is across the highway with the semi.
Right.
Life is life.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be cut short drastically. But, to Van's point, you talk about other animals that you typically don't see. And that's why I said porcupine. Noticed a lot of dead porcupine along the road, which is not typically something one sees as roadkill, but, probably trying to find food or make its way from A to B.
Right.
It take its chance and it, pays the unfortunate price for that. But
so do you notice that more this time of year than you do in the summer, fall, and winter season?
I wish I could say I paid attention that much, but that you mention it in my mind, because I take a particular stretch of highway to work 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week. Okay. And I notice all the different types of animals that have, met their unfortunate end in the various places along the road. Generally, you see a lot of deer. But to your point, like I said, I've noticed more porcupine and raccoon that I normally see at other various times of the year. So is it, happenstance, or is there something to what you're saying?
Right. Well, I'm just trying to tie this all together to all animals. And, I'm not trying to exclude a Sasquatch creature if that has more road crossing or road occurrences, just like a raccoon would, or a deer, or a porcupine, like you said, this time of year, more than the late summer season and fall and winter season.
We would have to look at historical data for that.
Right, exactly. And I haven't done that.
We would have to, this is where a searchable database where you could put in those parameters,
Right.
roadside crossings.
Right.
When are they most prevalent? And you could go through and start, back in the day when we started the Keystone Bigfoot Project just here in Pennsylvania, that was one of the things we wanted to do, is have a searchable database where you could, query certain items like moon phase,
Right.
or season, or
Right.
general location, or perhaps you're even saying, if you narrow it down by times a year, what types of sightings are you going to see?
Right.
What that requires is somebody, though, inputting that data and making it searchable, which is a little bit more skill than I possess, but I know there's
Yeah.
people out there, and there's probably somebody working on that.
Yeah.
And that is what we need in terms of validating it as much as you can
Oh, yeah.
in the questions that you're asking, because as we know, it's all eyewitness data, and that doesn't mean every data point that's put in there is valid.
Right. Right.
I don't know.
And I would, attribute to the fact to the late Linda Gottfried. She did a lot of that. Even though she was greatly focused on the Dogman in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, she kept a lot of data as far as time of year, what the moon phase was, the temperature. She did keep a lot of that specific data as to when these occurrences were happening. And there is some correlation. Now, is that the same correlation with Bigfoot sightings? There's been so many reports. Well, it was a full moon. I don't know that a full moon has a whole lot to do with it, but maybe the time of season when the deer are looking for a nesting place to give birth to young, and this is when the chase becomes more active, and there's a more Bigfoot chasing, a meal in the spring season. It's not so cold. We're not conserving as much energy to stay warm. These are things that I'm a novice on. I just don't know enough about, but I keep looking into a lot of these research databases to see if I find something that says, hey, this is pretty interesting, that between April and May, there seems to be a lot more sightings, roadside sightings or road crossing sightings, than there are at other times of the year. And why would that be?
Well, I think we would have to look and see see if we could find some general information out there by doing a quick Google search.
Mm-hmm.
What's the percentage of Bigfoot sightings that are roadside crossings anyhow?
Right.
I wonder how many reports going back to as long as we've been collecting them are just roadside encounters, as opposed to these full-blown, as the BFRO calls them, Class A, encounters where they're, all up in your grill. And I just don't know what that number is. I would be very interested to know that.
Mm.
I think it also entails we are a factor, because during spring, summer, we are more active.
Sure.
So therefore we are seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you have to look at it, that part of the point.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
like, for instance, me and Sean are seeing all these deer, and I keep using deer as a reference, but we're seeing all these deer because we are active.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
We are out.
We could go and look at the game cameras and validate that, they're there whether we're there or not.
Right.
Not like something you could do necessarily with Sasquatch, which we've had no real decent groundbreaking photographic evidence.
Right. Right.
To suggest that's the same. So I think we're on the right course. I think if we stay, and these long-term camera projects that are going on out there, may have some value over time.
Right.
At times we don't know, because there's a lot of factors we go into then. Is there a migration pattern? Are different areas just out at certain types of year? Vance, which may be why certain places get roadside sightings more than others.
Right.
When you start looking at the data and shaping it and start asking more questions, you start asking and you start getting the answers to those questions, and then you ask them.
Right.
So some of the things that you're talking about make are going to be some compelling things to look at once the data's in a searchable way that we could, I guess, I don't know, more get that information sooner.
Right.
Bad.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine on Thursday of last week, And I asked him, because he's a devout Catholic. I'll put that out there first. And I brought to him, the whole aspect of the Nephilim. And I'm not trying to change gears too fast, but the way he interprets it, he's like, well, yeah, there were giants here. So I showed him, and his statement was, but they would have to be very clever in hiding from the human population. So I showed to him the current Bigfoot sighting map of the continental United States. Okay. Not Alaska and Hawaii, but the continental United States. And, he noticed that central United States, from North Dakota all the way kind of down through Arizona, there's not a whole lot of sightings. He's like, yeah, but the human population isn't as great there either. And it would take a human in order to have a sighting encounter to make that report. And I'm like, well, that's a really good point. Maybe that's why there's not so many reports from the central United States, even though that area of landmass does not have as much forest land. But he wasn't surprised by looking at this at all. And he's very open-minded to the fact is yeah, well, if there's cover and forest land of any type of sort, whether it's tropical or whether it's, lush rainforest, it's very possible this thing could hide and stay away from a human population. And I found that a pretty honest opinion of his, because he's not stating he's a non-believer, but he's very open-minded to the fact that, yeah, there's a possibility that there's this creature that has an intelligence level that just wants to have nothing to do with human interaction whatsoever, because it recognizes humans as the most violent creature on the face of the earth.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Right.
That's a lot to unpack.
It is, but I found that a really interesting, interpretation from somebody that's not involved in this whole spectrum of this field that we're in right now, and trying to get some answers. And when you speak to people that are not involved, but you want their opinion, they can give you some aspects that you probably haven't thought of before to go, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then you may want to look in that direction too.
It's a good point.
I try.
Welcome back. You made it. Maybe.
Henry, is your audio okay?
It might be.
I'm having problems.
Yeah. Will you just stand there and look handsome? We got you.
Yeah, there you go.
We got you.
Especially in the podcast.
Mustaches.
Well, at that time, Vance, the Nephilim is, kind of becoming a hot topic again.
Mm-hmm.
Very, and I don't want to say inside the Bigfoot community, it's happening outside in the other realms of the esoteric, unexplained.
All right.
Really getting heavily hit. And I just don't know how to reconcile that, because I don't know. There's just something about it that.
Well, in a lot of the cases, and and I'm not going to defend, anybody's perception of when they describe the Nephilim. But when it was described, it wasn't given into a detail of this giant was covered from hair to toe, with hair. It never gave that description. It gave the description of a giant on two legs. And when you look at even when you go back to Leif Erikson as a Viking conquering, the North American continent years before Columbus, ended up in South America, he was greeted by the shores and written in his journals that when they arrived upon the shore, there were the giants that were on the shoreline fending them off. They didn't want them there. Well, who's to say these giants were not a Bigfoot type creature? He just described them as giants on two legs. I find that rather fascinating. Why would you come up with this conceptual fantasy when you're writing your journal about your discovery of a new world?
Well, to keep
and
other
I think
people away from it.
Sorry.
You know,
you just want to protect what you're finding. I mean, that could be one reason.
that's very
Stay away
possible.
from this
Sure.
land, it's mine, and there's these giant beings that throw rocks.
Right.
They don't want you there, pal.
Oh,
Right.
Iceland, Greenland.
Right.
But I mean, and honestly, I just did a quick Wikipedia look at Nephilim, and I don't even want to begin to get into that because I'd like to have a little bit more of a fully baked opinion before we go into that. I mean, over the years we've talked about it, we've heard it. I just don't know. It's not something I've entertained in the past because I don't like to mix my Sasquatch with religion, and I just like them separate.
I like them separate too. I do like them separate. But the fact that there's writings about giants, I take that into a great consideration to go, well, what if one is the same as the other? What if
you're talking about 3 or 4 scriptural passages. That's the thing.
Right.
Like, I mean, you're not talking like there's chapters upon chapters in the Bible about these giants.
Exactly. Right. Right.
It's kind of in passing.
In the same aspect that Theodore Roosevelt wrote about. It wasn't an entire book written about it by Theodore Roosevelt. It was a brief half a chapter on what happened to an individual. And then you have all these reports throughout the world, not just North America, but throughout the world that have similar aspects to it to say, wow, this is kind of interesting. Maybe there's something here from, the 10th century that has been talked about to present day. It's still being talked about with people having an encounter.
Well, before we go off on more on this, because
moron, you said the word moron.
The new Bigfoot bullhorn we're going to debut for everybody here tonight.
Woohoo!
We do have a question from the chat room, and the question from Facebook. I know this guy pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm under the understanding that more people in the central U.S. live off the grid or have more country cabins. Shouldn't they have a better chance to have a sighting than, say, someone who lives in Phoenix, Arizona?
Yep.
Or do they just not report them? I think it's the bottom part of that, Uncle Zen.
Yeah.
I don't think they talk about them. People there they live out there for one reason. They want their privacy.
Yeah.
They don't want this land and this experience that we're kind of stuck in on the day-to-day. So a chance of getting a report from one of those people. And as soon as he posts that question, in my mind, James, I'm going to Dr. John Mayenzinski.
Mm-hmm.
He lives out there in Montana or Wyoming by himself in a cabin. Maybe. Well, and this is my impression. My data could be wrong about his social structure of his own, but he lives remotely. He doesn't live in town. And he's had some experiences over the years that led him into this topic. We should get Dr. John Mayenzinski on here at some point.
I think that the Nephilim thing may be interesting, but I think that goes more into the people that think it's a spiritual creature, not flesh and bone.
Right.
And that's where that comes in. But I think honestly, like you said, the question is, a lot of these people that live off the grid don't want news vans and 50 people stomping through their land. They bought their land in the middle of nowhere. They know it's 2 hours from town on purpose.
Well, let's be honest. Generally, in those situations, there's a news van. There's also like Ruby Ridge or Ted Kaczynski. Situations where you don't want there to be.
You just want no part of it. Yeah, I get it.
All right, folks. Before we jump into our bottom of the segment, you can support Sasquatch Experience for as little as, get them up, boys, $2 a month. Patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. We got some great stuff coming. Some more watch alongs, which we all enjoy. And we haven't really been posting those too much because, well, listen, folks, they're not PC. They're not for the faint of heart. They are purely humor based. And I wouldn't want you to think of us in any other light besides the fact that it is done just for laughs.
Yeah,
so
we're all adults here. Yeah, we're all adults.
For $2, it's a hell of a good source of entertainment.
Yeah, sure it is.
Folks, we got Cryptic Crystal joining us on YouTube, one of our newest subscribers. Folks, you can subscribe over on YouTube. Cryptic Crystal, thank you so much
that's a cool
for becoming a listener. We appreciate that. And we'll be right back right after this guy has some info for us.
Yeah, sure.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, sure.
News team, assemble!
Ah, yes, the music remains the same, but the premise has changed. This is the Sasquatch Experience Bigfoot Bullhorn. Why stick with the old premise when you can add a little bit of habanero and spice things up? Bigfoot Bullhorn. We'll be giving you up-and-coming dates of events throughout the country, along with top story news regarding the Foot himself. It is Monday, and I hope everybody had a happy Easter. And today happens to be Easter Monday in Canada. I'm sure you all know Canada. It's America's largest national park, or otherwise known as America's Hat. But to all our friends in Canada, happy Easter to you too. Or as our White House press secretary refers to it, Canada. And now on to some Bigfoot Bullhorn news. Out of Monticello, Illinois, an article from WCIA. Whether you think Bigfoot is real or a myth, now you can hunt for him once again at Allerton Park and Retreat Center this coming April 28th. According to the BFRO, Illinois has 302 Bigfoot sightings on record. Now, Allerton is asking your help to see if you can track Bigfoot down again in an exclusive Bigfoot hunt for overnight guests during Allerton Park's Weekend Wind Down. Last month, Allerton Park hosted its first hunt for Bigfoot. Officials said the event sold out. At this second hunt for Bigfoot, officials said guests can check into their discounted rooms at $130 a night plus tax anytime after 3 p.m. on April 28th. And when you show your hotel room key at the check-in station, you'll receive a map. Then you can grab your flashlights and headlamps and get ready to find Bigfoot. Allerton Park said there might even be 2 or 3 Bigfoots lurking around, too. Everyone must search for clues throughout the trail and find treats along the way while supplies last. Officials warn that there may be some tricks there to fool you. The Diggity Dogs food truck will be available for dinner from 6 to 9 p.m. A cash bar will also be available. You may even have some beverages with Bigfoot back at the mansion after the hunt. You can review rooms at Allerton Park or call them at 217-333-3287. Again, 217-333-3287 to make a reservation. Officials said overnight guests will receive their lodging at a discounted rate and 2 drink tokens per room and access to the After Dark Bigfoot Hunt. Now, clearly, this is a spoof event, and that's quite all right, actually, because, look, if it lights a fuse to spark the interest in this entire field to begin with, then I'm okay with it, including kids. When we come back, another big event and reminder.
You're listening to the Sasquatch Experience.
Got knockers? I know I don't. Welcoming our new sponsor to the Sasquatch Experience, Got Knockers, a fun and innovating group with products and conversations alike. Wear proudly the Bigfoot Got Knockers apparel at Etsy. Just search Got Knockers on Etsy. Then be sure to go over to the Facebook and join the Got Knockers community with numerous popular names you've heard of and trust. Thank you to Got Knockers for this new venture. Again, visit Etsy, Got Knockers, and the Facebook community group. The Skunk Ape of Florida, announcing the 3rd annual Great Florida Bigfoot Conference on April 22nd of this year at the World Equestrian Center in Ocala, Florida, featuring an all-star lineup of Bigfoot researchers, investigators, and authors ready to interact with fans and discuss their experiences and findings. Doors open at 9 a.m. and we go till 6 p.m. This event is open to the public, but advance tickets are recommended as we cannot guarantee them at the door in case of a sellout. But don't miss the end segments as we bring back the full panel of speakers on stage for an interactive question and answer, along with a segment of encounters from the audience. Additional events are planned for the weekend to include a meet and greet dinner a day before the event for all VIP ticket holders in the first 4 rows. Tickets are on sale now. Lineups include Bigfoot World, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, the Skunk Ape Roundtable, encounters from attendees, Ron Moorhead, Ronnie LeBlanc, David Politis, and the Speaker Roundtable. Join us, won't you? Thanks again for listening to this new edition of the Bigfoot Bullhorn, exclusively on the Sasquatch Experience. Until next time, keep your toes in the mud.
How dare you!
Well, there we are, the Bigfoot Bullhorn, the inaugural edition. Well done, man. Well done.
Yeah.
And of course, our partners, our friends at Dot Knockers, Gwen Purcell and team. Very glad to have them on as a sponsor for this season. And we have an event coming up together this summer, the Central Pennsylvania Cryptid Fest. So it'll be interesting to get everybody together. I'll be speaking. Matt Arner will be speaking. Our good friend and backup co-host Bill Rigby will be speaking. It's going to be a great event, guys, and a very low-cost event, $10 to hear the speakers. Money's going to a good cause, and, of course, we'll have information to that as we start getting closer to the actual event, which will be held in August of this summer. So
Right.
little piece of information for you there. Of course, our social media folks, you can check us out, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook or Instagram, Squatch EXP on the Twitter. Yes, folks are still on Twitter. Despite the mass exodus, we're still on there because
Yeah.
I just
we
like you guys.
refer to it here as twatter, but
Well, there you go. Well, before we went on break, we had a great question from a listener about off the grid living and those folks experiencing, should they have more Bigfoot encounters? But also to the point, he points out Phoenix, Arizona as the example. But we have had stories out of the desert in Arizona, Vance. And granted, the one stories of the desert apes were pretty unique. We got from the gentleman who wrote the book Camelio.
Right.
That was one hell of a meth trip.
Oh my goodness. I'm still stuck on that whole Camelio thing. Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting, and there's some bits and pieces in there that could be really
right.
Outstanding.
Right.
Yeah, they could be, 100% based in fact. We don't know. Is it a good story?
Right. But look at all the stories that come out of the Nevada desert as well. It's they tie together. Arizona and Nevada, they do tie together. But wow, the plethora of stories that come out of Nevada are incredible.
Oh, not just there. You have Utah and the whole Four Corners region where J.C. Johnson, our old friend, used to go and research Chief Leonard Dan, all kinds of strange and unusual paranormal phenomena out of that.
Yeah,
area.
I'm glad you brought up the Four Corners because wow, there's so much reading material just on the Four Corners alone that are so compelling, and leave you just scratching your head going, wow, what is happening in this area, let alone everywhere else.
I'm still committed to the fact that this thing's flesh and blood.
Yeah, okay? I am too. Yeah,
however,
I am too.
With that being said, there is some undeniable encounters that happen that leave me shaking my head with no explanation that this cannot be a flesh and blood creature, which leaves us with a couple different venues.
Right.
It's made up, even though it's a hell of a good story.
Yeah.
Or this creature has abilities that just aren't known to any other mammal, or that it's something completely different whatsoever.
Isn't that the crazy part? And this all goes back to the Skinwalker Ranch, in the
the big catalyst of that.
Exactly. And it kind of was. But look, you had NIDS scientists that were scoping and seeing this bright light and a portal type of thing open up and sees this humanoid creature that looks like a Bigfoot climb out of it and runs off into the woods.
But not documented.
But this is the best that they could do. They didn't have video evidence. They were just using spotting scopes and saw this, and this is what they reported in their journals.
But this is the shit that gets me every time.
Yeah, exactly.
The camera wasn't rolling, or we just didn't have the equipment, which is
right.
Legitimate reasons as to why. I'm not saying that. I know things cost money. For the love of goodness, I know they cost money. We bitch about that every other week on this show, that if we had the money, we could do this. But with that being said, at some point, there's got to be something. Either there's stuff out there we haven't seen that we're not going to be privy to see, or it just doesn't exist. That's
true. But let me interject something. And I don't know if this is going to make sense to anybody. It may not, and it might just sound like gibberish.
Bring it.
Some living entity that is that's a bipedal creature with 2 arms, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, a head that sits on the shoulders. Seems to be the most perfect design, because you have alien creatures that are bipedal with 2 arms, a head that sits on the shoulder, and maybe a creature similar to a Bigfoot, if it's a blood or flesh and blood. Oh, there's a train. Woo-hoo!
Baker got it late.
Yeah, you're a little late, Baker, but at least we got the train.
No, Vance, the question is, why does it have to be that way? Why does it have to be that way?
I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, but it seems to me to be the perfect biological animal design to have transportation via 2 legs, 2 arms with an opposable thumb, two nostrils, 2 eyes to see in bipolar vision, and a head that sits on the shoulders. So if this is a multiverse type of design, where a Bigfoot creature from another realm may replicate a flesh and blood creature here.
My head hurts.
I know. This goes way beyond my realm, where these are things that, keep me up at night thinking about. And I'm like, well, I guess it's possible.
I had a conversation with somebody one time that if we were taken to another planet, we wouldn't be able to survive because our body wouldn't be able to break down the things we're eating, because it would have different chemical compositions than what our body's used to eating.
Okay. But that's what we know in our physical world. We don't know the physical world of other places. We just don't. Because physics change in places that we haven't discovered physics yet. Wow, we're getting into a rabbit hole, and I understand that we're getting into a deep rabbit hole, but
biologics are biologics, though. What happens to our body is concrete.
Right.
What we can digest, what we can do, the stresses our body can handle. We know this because, oh shit, he's dead, Jim. I mean,
right.
We know these things because this happens.
Right.
We don't know what these things that come from another
place. Just say another place. If
they come from another place. I stress that a lot because I don't know. I
don't know either.
This is going way down to an area that I don't think any of us are prepared for to talk logically on tonight, or to have a real good thorough discussion, because we just kind of rammed it in there fast.
Right. Yes, we did.
But I don't. But my problem with the whole bipedal thing is if you look at nature in general, bipedal is not the most effective way for an animal. Actually, most animals that do on 4 legs are actually faster, stronger.
Yes, but
bipedal is good for us because we are able to use that to our advantages. But like there's certain processes in our body that changed when we went from being I guess, using legs and arms to travel to just the legs, parts of our body shifted.
Right.
Even if you look in primates shifted where certain organs were, or certain orifices were, or how they work, because we were it's easier. You ever see that squatty potty thing? The concept is accurate. We're supposed to sit a certain way to do certain functions, but because we decided, or we evolved to be bipedal, those things have been evolving with us. But it's not always the most effective way, because like animals are quicker than us.
But take a look at the species. Take a look at the bipedal human species, and take a look at the species of white-tailed deer. Just as an example, which one's further advanced? The bipedal human, because we have opposable thumbs. We can manipulate things.
Even though a fish can live underwater longer than us, but it can't do math, it doesn't make us less than us. Dolphins are supposedly smarter than us.
Yeah. Well, they say that they're smarter than us, but then again, look, you're talking about a mammal that doesn't have scales on its body, so it's pretty much just swimming around the ocean naked, and has promiscuous sex with each other because hey, we don't have this boundary of clothes, and let's just fool around. It's like running around in a naked community.
I'm just trying to say is like a lot of your points are valid, but at the same time is when you look at like a lot of times I think the reason we see Bigfoot the way we see it, or we see aliens the way we see it, is the same reason why when you watch Star Trek, we gravitate toward all the aliens look like us, because the person who created them want them to bond with us, want them for us to see them. Like you ever watch the movie Paul?
Yeah.
Yes.
He goes, you look just like the alien that was on the Coca-Cola commercial and is on the little cups and stuff. He goes, yeah, we've been speed fooding that shit for you 100 years so that when we show up, you don't freak out.
Right. Right.
Oh, perhaps something to that. We talk about conditioning, right? But let's step away from this guy.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Sean.
No. It was a good conversation topic, but like I said, I don't think any of us are fully prepared to have a, in this moment now, to have a long-term conversation about that particular point.
No, that'll be in an upcoming show. Yeah.
You're damn right it is now.
It's a valid point.
So while we were on spring break, that's what we'll call it, I have been just ripping into the Sasquatch archives that's been curated by Todd Prescott over on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry's not here, and I really wanted his answer to this question. Pardon me, but there was a lot of Renee DeHinden videos. In fact, the video is titled 1996 Sasquatch Days with Renee DeHinden berating Dr. Grover Krantz 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And the timestamp of the quote is 7 minutes 59 seconds in. So 7 minutes 59 seconds in, Renee DeHinden says something. And for folks who may not know who Renee DeHinden is, he's one of the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery, one of the founders.
He's the 5th one. Yeah, right.
He's the best one. Maybe it depends on your point.
Right.
Renee is again one of the forefront into this research.
Right.
But Renee says, I've dedicated my life to this, and this, as we all know, I think we are all here, every one of us at the event. If this damn thing exists, it's the biggest scientific discovery the world may have ever seen.
Right.
I mean, it will be mind-boggling. The implications, so many fields that will blow your mind. And some people, it's Mickey Mouse stuff. And then he pauses. And even though the pause is short, in that moment, it felt like it just, the initial time I heard it, just went on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about that pause because I think that, his head goes down. He gets a little solemn about it, maybe a little emotional in his own mind. But think about that. I've dedicated my life to this. I've not been on this planet, but maybe at a hiccup compared to some people. But a good part of my life, I've dedicated myself to this research, right? And I could tell you what it means to me and how important it is to me. And that's why I still do this podcast and why after 27, 28 years, I'm still here doing this stuff. Is that, again, it is the biggest scientific discovery the world will see in our lifetime if we prove it.
Right.
And the implications are so outstanding. They will impact many different things and they change our life. But the fact that he finishes that quote off with, and there's a few more words in there that, really kind of just go against Dr. Krantz. But to some people, it's Mickey Mouse stuff. Like, to think about how some people just minimize that this topic and the implications so great on everything we know, to me, is just, it kind of grounded me, that quote, and put me in perspective that we got to keep going and we got to keep doing this, because Renee didn't see the end of this in his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
John Green didn't see the end of this in his lifetime. Grover Krantz didn't. And, Peter Byrne's still out there.
Right.
So these folks haven't seen the culmination of their lives' work. And, now it's our life's work for some of us. And Henry, hey, Henry, welcome back. You poor guy's having so many problems here tonight with his connection. But, it just really resonated with me, Vance. What are your thoughts on that? Like, it's to me, like, I've dedicated a good part of my life to this too.
All right.
Not as many as Renee at this point, but hell, by the time we go on, I'm young. I can have another 50 years of this, no problem.
Right. Well, I have not dedicated as much time to this subject that you have. But when I take a step back and I look at the big scope of everything, I start to come to the realization that I understand what Renee was speaking of. I understand what, like you said, the Four Horsemen were speaking of, because of the fact that they had spent so much time researching this. And I'm looking at the big picture of the possibility. And this all goes back to day one when I first saw the PG film as a kid. When I saw the PG film, I knew immediately, wow, this thing is real. I had no question that anything was a hoax. And I'm not trying to change this into the PG film, is it hoax or not a hoax? This was my initial reaction, and I can certainly understand why these gentlemen took the initiative and the dedication to dedicate their lives to this.
But my question for you now on that, Vance, is what would it be like if you were that young kid and immediately somebody said to you, that's just a man in a suit?
I wouldn't have bought it at that time. And I didn't buy it at the time.
But now think about this. Here we are all these years later.
I know. Yes.
And, held up to all that scrutiny.
Right.
But it's so easily dismissed. The problem is people that aren't in this research have no idea the amount of time and effort spent into trying to prove, not trying to prove it's real, trying to prove it's a hoax.
Right.
I think that's the outstanding part. So much time is spent on this, trying to prove that it wasn't real.
But what's the fear factor in it not being real? That's what creeps me out. Why are there so many that are just so adamant that this is a hoax? Why are you spending so much time on it? Let it go. Move on. If you think it's a hoax, fine, move on. But they are adamant to keep pushing these facts to say, nope, it's a man in a suit. Well, what do you care?
The core factor of if you can poke a hole in one part of someone's belief, you open a door that you can poke more holes.
Absolutely.
It's the same conversations you have with anybody of different perspective is. Even like you look at court of law, you look at all these other things. The best defense attorney doesn't have to prove that you shot the guy. He just has to prove that you might not have.
Right.
If you get one little push in the door that says, well, oh, yeah, that's just a guy in a suit, not you. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's acquitted. But you just need that one piece. The other thing is there's people that are holding on so tight to that film that don't read more books. Don't go to go to places that me and Forker and you and Henry have gone to talk to the people. Like I've talked, and I actually feel special that I talked to, some of the people that were at these sightings, and you look them in the face and you can tell crazy, and you can tell I saw something that made me want to poop myself.
Right.
And I'm telling people because I need to get it out of my head so that so that I can quit feeling stupid.
Right.
You can tell the difference between that and like a gentleman that'll walk up to our stand, and we had this at the thing in Tennessee, or was it Tennessee?
It was
He
Tennessee,
walked up, and you could tell he was nuts. He kept saying this and that and that, and everything was this, and then, hey, here's a picture, and they had to make all the circles and everything. Those people you could tell. Then the next guy who came up goes, I haven't told very many people about this, but this happened to me, and I want to get it out. Hey, can you guys listen? And their stories are not over judgmental. They're not
right.
Let's not add 14 other things. It wasn't aliens and Bigfoot, and he had a purple foot, and he was big, and I did all this and that, and I did karate on him, and and I ran away, and I lived his way.
Right.
I saw this thing in the woods. It made me almost poop. I ran till I couldn't stop running, and when I looked behind me, I saw it again. And you can look in their face and go, they didn't over embellish, they didn't whatever. So either they got that story, they stole that story 1,000 times and reduced it down to this, I went to store, okay? Or they're telling the truth because they know that all that extra shit wasn't important. The important thing is I went to the mountains, I was trying to camp with my family.
Right.
This big furry thing almost bit me. I got back in the truck. Okay.
Right. Well, which brings me to a point, Bake, and I'm glad you brought it up, because in the Bigfoot Bullhorn segment of the conference that's happening in Ocala, Florida, there's going to be an opportunity for attendees to share their story. Now, look, if anybody is listening to this and you can't make it there and you want to share your story, we encourage you to share your story with the Sasquatch Experience.
Sure.
Because we certainly will not, and we'll keep anonymity at full, if that's what you want. But we would love to share your story. And if you can't make it there, this is another option for you to be able to share your story. And I wanted to make that a point before that segment ended. But it is important, because I would love to hear what it is that you experienced, and we'll discuss it. Absolutely. In a very optimistical way, not to criticize at all, because we have no right to criticize your experience.
We also take them confidentially. So if you don't want us to talk about it on the air, when you go to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, there's a report your sighting form. It is confidential unless you check the box that says, yes, we may share it on the show. But rest assured, off there, we will talk about it with one another, and we'll get in contact with you. And of course, you can always email it to us at info@SasquatchExperience.com. It's important for us that you have an outlet where you can share these stories, and we want them, because at the end of the day, it is data. Like we want that information just for if anything, for the simple fact that we have it, and we have it as a resource. We can go back and we may rely on it one day. We may very well have to rely on, oh my God, they had this experience, and if we do this, maybe we can avoid some nasty experience. Well, it could be life-saving for all you know. As we go back to the beginning of the show, when you were talking about, roadside crossings and encounters, like every little bit of information helps in terms of trying to figure out the answer to your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would we not want to know the answer to that question?
Right.
I just to go back to that DeHinden quote. It's a messy quote, but it's because it was more of a really raw in the moment when he was talking about that particular subject. But I've dedicated my life to this, guys. That's a hell of a statement.
Right.
And it's true. And maybe that's why, because I am a little bit of a romantic when it comes to things like, carrying on the work for others because they've dedicated so much and not seeing it fulfilled.
Right.
And I guess maybe part of me, because I don't want to do this and not see some something of my work fulfilled.
At least some tangible evidence, right?
And they didn't get that, and that's the sad part. And they are preserved in history, thanks to people like Todd, but also his own book. And people like us and our fellow podcasters as we go and continue these stories and these conversations to keep them alive in the spirit of what they're doing, going. It's important that we remember where we've been so we know where to go next. So we don't keep stepping in the same puddle of shit.
Yep.
It's because you know what? This is also a business where everything's cyclical. And as new people come in,
it is.
Don't know what they don't know, and they ask the question. And they email someone like me at 2:30 in the morning or message me.
Right.
And then my answer is read a damn book.
Right.
And I don't say it to be rude. I say it because all the answers that the questions you're asking me, if you had read this book, you wouldn't be asking me this question.
All right.
Read.
Right.
I guess that's my final thought on this for the night. Guys, what do you want to wrap up with?
Keep your toes in the mud and keep looking. And when you find something, share it with us, because we would be privileged and we would, give you a hearty handshake, a pat on the back, and the warm glow of victory. And we'll certainly respect anything you have to share with the Sasquatch experience.
Let me say one more thing on to that, though, because you're really true. Sasquatch experience isn't an income stream for us.
Nope.
This is truly a hobby. Any money we make with the show, we spend on our trips.
And we put it back into the show again.
Yeah, three of us do okay for ourselves.
Right.
This isn't our occupation.
No.
This isn't our
mainstream income. No, not at all. No.
And this is our passion, and we do it, and we keep coming back because of that. Henry, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
No,
hey,
there
Henry,
he is.
Did you hear that DeHinden quote?
No, what would he say?
So I'll read this to you, and I want your thought on this. And
okay.
We'll go a little over because, we're not time limited per se. Shit, my chair. That wasn't the quote. The quote goes, "I've dedicated my life to this, and this, as we all know, I think, we are all here, every one of us, if this damn thing exists, it's the biggest scientific discovery the world might have ever seen. I mean, it will be mind-boggling. The implications in so many fields that will blow your mind." And then there's some where he berates Dr. Krantz a little bit. And then he says, some people, it's Mickey Mouse stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pause. And at that pause, Henry kind of bows his head for a minute, like he's having a little bit of a moment there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Renee, the thing about Renee was he was very cantankerous, very crusty. But to say that we dedicated our lives to this, I mean, you could say that he did at least.
Sure.
We know that he did. It cost him his marriage, for crying out loud.
Right.
And it's funny, though, don't you think that, to some people that the topic is still kind of, not serious. But again, someone like him, cost him a marriage, Henry.
Right.
Henry, any final thoughts for us tonight, buddy?
Oh, just I highly encourage anybody who's actually had a sighting to report it. It doesn't have to be to us. It can be to the BFRO. It can be to any other researcher, any dedicated researcher.
Yeah. Dedication. And, it goes more to our point. Like, this is a passion for us. Here we are again, 7 seasons. A rebirth after we already did a shit ton back in the early 2000s. Keep coming back to talk Bigfoot because, something does it, guys. And whatever it is, from our own experiences that we've had and our own research brings us back. Even though we take a break from time to time, brings us back.
Yeah, but it's still a subject that sits in the cockles of our heart, and it'll always be there. There's just something about all of this that just hits the center of our soul, and that this is what drives us to do something like this.
Something so close to us, but not.
Right.
Bake, any final words?
Tick season is starting. Spray before you have to reach for in areas where you can't reach.
And it's deodorant season. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes. All right. Deodorant is very important.
We'll take that. Yeah, we'll take that.
Henry, take us home.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
There you are, folks. We'll be back on the 24th with our friend Gwen from Got Knockers and from Behind Two Tall Trees. Ladies' Night. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.